A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to Survival of No Limits. Now, let me just say for sure that this next topic is going to interest some of you, because if there's one real thing that I seem to withstand, it'd be voltage. Now that's a pretty good hint, but I'll just go ahead and lay it out for you. Electrocution is up next, here on the 45th episode of the series, and the 45th episode of the season as a whole. So that's pretty much just what that's all about. But let's just get into it. Electrocution is certainly another thing out there that a lot of us try to avoid, because high concentrations of volts or amps or watts, depending on what is your typical increment of measurement regarding electrical shocks and the like, it is pretty, in fact, pretty dangerous for the most part. But that's mostly because electrocutions are, in fact, usually graded at very high levels of volts. If you're familiar with the electric chair, which is still used today, but probably not as much as it used to, then you could pretty much find millions of volts that are generally associated with large amounts of power that would generally be supplied to most electrical outlets and other locations, usually throughout an entire town's worth of houses and buildings and other spots that just so happen to have their own sort of power grid to run off on. Now, of course, millions of volts is certainly not pretty, but let's just say that it could only get worse from then on out, because billions of volts could actually lead to some more combustible traits here and there. And it's probably not necessarily as plausible, but the thing is that even with such a small amount of volts, it can still be pretty dangerous. You would still need a lot of volts to basically kill a person. You could basically look at it in most ways. With millions of volts used in an electric chair or an electric fence, which might have more, it's generally meant for keeping in animals and preventing them from escaping. Of course, we remember that one moment in Jurassic Park where Timmy basically grabs hold of the electric fence and then gets a dosage of 10,000 volts, which was apparently enough to, well, make the poor guy unconscious and unable to breathe. I mean, that's just what the movies depict. But realistically speaking, it would certainly take lots and lots of volts just to kill somebody. So, for the most part, there's lots of things out there that you could generally have on you that actually can deal a gigantic amount of volts, such as a stun gun or a taser. And those things can usually be in the tens of millions, usually between 40 and 56 million volts. And usually a small, like, split-second shock of that would be enough to temporarily paralyze a person, making them unable to move, pretty much, but occasionally twitch, pretty much. Yeah. But the main thing is that with electrical shocks and the like, you would normally have to worry about things like your eyeballs exploding, your musculature paralyzing as a whole, and then of course you gotta worry about many other things out there. Your body could be burned, your heart could be stopped, your lungs could be shredded to pieces, and you might end up, well, urinating or defecating unintentionally. So that's just a few other examples right there as to how an electric shock would not be pretty. But overall, I mean, it still is pretty good to know that even to this day, we still do have lots of ways of keeping our electrical outlets safe and free from harm, as just hundreds of volts would actually be enough to basically make it feel as if you probably got hit in the finger by a needle. Basically, a ton of needles, pretty much. So that's pretty much just all I'm going to be able to talk based on that whole entire thing, but I will say for sure that this is not even close to being the very end of the series. I can tell you that for right now, especially because this season is still going to be going for a while. So If you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.